Welcome to OLC 40. This is week 9. We are on class 30, lesson 19, and assignment 43. And I am Jillian Percy. Here are all the ways to reach me. I'm in the studio right now, 1-800-465-7144. You can also reach me at the OWASA office for about an hour or two after this class, 1-800-667-3703. You can fax your work to 1-800-463-7852. You can re-listen to a recording at gpercy space WASA. Submit your assignments at student.work@nnec.on.ca. Please remember to put your full name, the lesson number, the assignment name or number on it, and the course. Okay, I've got about 4 courses I teach. I want to make sure that I know which one it's going to, okay? I get a lot of assignments. I'm not always sure where an assignment goes. Then I just don't mark it and try and wait until I can talk to the student to be sure, because each assignment has a different marking scheme, okay? So I want to talk today a little bit about words. Words can have a dictionary definition, which is what we call the denotative meaning. But words can also have overtones or carry positive, negative, or added meaning than simply what the dictionary lists. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. And a really interesting little video on it that I thought did a nice job. I'm going to use that as kind of our intro to the
Hello,
topic.
readers. Today, let's talk about feelings, specifically the way that words make us feel. That's right, I'm talking about connotation, the way a word feels, the context around it. Imagine a rock in a stream. Well, connotation is the way that culture flows around a word. This is distinct from denotation, which is more like the dictionary definition of a word. Companion and buddy both have similar denotations. They both mean friend, but companion is a much more formal sounding word than buddy, which originated as a piece of slang from the 19th century. So even though their denotation or their literal definition is the same, they feel different. The connotation of companion is formal, while the connotation of buddy is friendly and casual. Good readers pay close attention to the words the author chose to use. They pick those words for a reason. How do those words make you feel? What is the author trying to imply? How do the words help to propel the overall tone or theme of the text? So connotation is about word choice, sure, but it's also about setting a tone. One way you set tone is by expressing an opinion. So some words may have a similar denotation, but very different connotations. For example, let's say I was describing someone whose behavior was nice, like they were behaving in a kindly way. The way I describe that person can express how I, as a writer, feel about that behavior. If I trust the person, I could describe them as sweet as sugar. Oh, Jake's such a sweet guy. Love that Jakey boy. But if I didn't trust that person, like if I thought that this hypothetical Jake's show of kindness was fake, I could say that he was cloying or syrupy. And those words also mean sweet, but they have a connotation of too much. Cloying means too sweet. So you can sort these words into positive and negative connotations. Sweet is positive, cloying is negative. Some words will have neutral or uncertain connotations, and that's okay too. But it doesn't just have to be straightforwardly positive, negative, or neutral either. You can just use connotation for the sake of poetic license or building a motif. Let's say I was writing a story about someone who started a plant nursery, and I wanted to use words that described growth. But I also wanted to build in connotations about nature or plants throughout the piece. In this example, I'm a newspaper reporter, and I'm doing a profile of someone in my town. Let's call her Genevieve. Genevieve Jenkins, proprietor of Jenkins Orchard Supply. She's ready for the outdoors. She's got her big sun hat. She's got her hoop earrings. She's got a little name tag. She's got a little plant necklace. She seems like a nice person. Okay. I could say Jenkins Orchard Supply was a great success in its new location, but if I wanted to put in a little bit of that nature note, I'd say Jenkins Orchard Supply flourished in its new location, because flourished is related to the word flower. To flourish is to grow. Grow and flourish have a similar denotation, but they have different connotations. Grow can refer to plants, but it can also refer to anything that increases in size. A little sponge toy can grow when you place it in a cup of water, but it won't flourish. Flourishing has a connotation of flowering and success. Continuing this idea, I could talk about how Ms. Jenkins decided to settle on the location of her plant nursery, and rather than say that she settled into the neighborhood, I could say instead that she put down roots there. Now, these are kind of extreme examples. These nature words and expressions are getting kind of close to jokes or puns, but I'm trying to be extra obvious here about the plant thing so that you can learn to detect more subtle connotations in the future. And connotation can be so personal, too. There may be words that have important emotional resonance for one person that are basically meaningless to anybody else. When I was a kid, I cycled through pretty much every team sport. Baseball, soccer, basketball. I wasn't good at any of them, but I was especially terrible at basketball. And I remember very particularly the way the coaches would call out, "Good hustle, David, good hustle," because that was the only thing I could do especially well. I couldn't dribble, I definitely couldn't shoot, and my passing game was not great. So even now, I associate the phrase "good hustle" with "you're not especially good at basketball." Which is a shame, because, I'm tall now. My experience is specific to me. It's not universal. It's very unlikely that you share that same connotation with the word hustle. A fun game to play is to come up with a word and then list all the synonyms for that word you can imagine, and then sort them by connotation. If you are, like me, the kind of person who enjoys sorting jelly beans by color, you will get a similar amount of satisfaction from that exercise. So, look out for connotations as you read, as you write. Words carry their dictionary meanings, but they also carry other cultural meanings as well. And that's connotation. You can learn anything. David out.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about positive versus negative connotation. It comes up a lot when you're talking about personality traits. Sometimes how somebody writes about a character gives you the impression of whether that person's kind of like the good guy in the story or the bad guy in the story. And it can be true about how we talk about ourselves or talk about the people around us. Often we have similar words that really mean the same thing, but one in our mind is kind of a positive, good thing to have, and the other one's maybe not so good. So, for example, determined versus stubborn. You can both picture somebody who will keep on going until they get it done or get their way. But determined sounds great, right? Oh, that's a determined person. And stubborn sounds not quite so good. And yet, really, they both mean the same thing. But one has the connotation of being not such a great thing. Trusting versus naive. Trusting sounds nice, right? But naive makes me think, ooh, this is somebody who's going to get scammed, who's going to get tricked. Protective versus interfering. That's what I was thinking about in terms of parents. Why do you say somebody's a protective parent? That sounds positive. But if you say they're an interfering parent, it just paints a totally different picture, even though it may be the exact same sort of action. Thorough versus nitpicking. Agreeable versus people pleasing. Leading versus controlling. Tidy versus a neat freak. Flexible versus wishy-washy. So you may have your own list of things where if you say it a certain way, it means something not so good. Be on the lookout when you're reading for those kind of words in what we read, right? Because they're there all the time. Writers use them deliberately, and you will begin to notice them if you're kind of beginning to look for them. Along the same kind of line is the concept of shades of meaning. And that's a phrase where there's a lot of words that are synonyms for the same idea, but they have a different level of intensity. So below are some words that all convey the concept of anger, but some of them make you think of anger at a very mild level, and others that are at a very high level of that same emotion. Different words have different connotations. Where would you put these with the ones that are weakest on the left and ones that are strongest on the right? And of course, as the guy was talking about having personal connotations, some of these to your mind may be stronger than others. And if three people sorted these, we might all end up with ones that are quite different. So for me, at the let's read these first. Annoyed, enraged, irritated, mad, upset, contrary, berserk, angered, argumentative, and meltdown. And when I'm thinking of these, to me, berserk seems like the angriest because it makes me think of like Viking warriors attacking others with their swords, right? It's like way, way over the top, completely out of control. Okay. And then trying to think about the other side, mild ones like annoyed seems kind of mild, uh, irritated seems kind of mild. But I was thinking about contrary. Contrary is almost like before you get mad, like the kind of person that's always arguing about stuff, even when they don't necessarily have strong feelings. So I thought maybe that's kind of the first one for me. You might put it somewhere different, and that's okay, right? Shades of meaning, it's a tricky concept, right? Irritated. Irritated would come before annoyed to me. And these are both ones that like in a sense the other person in the room might not even realize that you're feeling an emotion or feeling something because they're so mild. And then at the other end, I'm thinking of things like enraged and like meltdown. I'm going to put enraged as farther along than meltdown because for some reason, meltdown makes me think of someone who's like maybe like a kid or an older teen and they're having not quite a tantrum, but like they've just kind of lost it. And they'd be really angry, but they're not necessarily violent in my sense. And I mean, maybe violent would be a shade of this too, although maybe that's a different concept. I'm not sure. Then I've got these four that are kind of similar to me in the middle, and it's really subtle as to which one would go where to me. Maybe mad would be next. I feel like angered might be kind of like the most kind of middle one. And then upset versus argumentative. Upset feels like it might be kind of more sad than anger, but it's also might be kind of part of it or before it. Argumentative, I'm putting here after annoyed. They're not quite at upset, but they're a little bit past annoyed. And again, you may have different places you would put these, and that's totally fine. And there's no one right way, but it is something to be mindful of when you're reading a story. If somebody says, you know, um, her husband came came out came out of the bedroom clearly enraged, I'm going to be expecting something very different than if we said clearly irritated. Irritated, I might be expecting some sarcasm. Enraged, I might be nervous that the character is about to get hurt or something, right? So it does kind of help you as you're reading to be thinking about what the words mean and their connotations. Also, sometimes words can change their connotative meanings over the years. They can go from something neutral to something negative, or they can come to mean something else completely entirely. For example, homely has come to mean something ugly. If you said that person's really homely, it's not a compliment, right? But at one point, it meant something more like comfortable or cozy. Like that was a homely chair. It doesn't mean it's an ugly chair. It means like it's a cozy chair that makes a place feel more warm, like a home. Awful used to mean more like awesome rather than what it means now, which is more like terrible. Nice, which is kind of a generic word. Oh, she's a very nice person. It used to be something more like silly. It wouldn't have been a compliment at all, right? Fantastic used to mean something more like imaginative, right? Something that was in your imagination rather than great. So a unicorn might be fantastic, not meaning that it was great or awesome, but that it is imaginary, right? Many words also have multiple meanings depending on how they're used. So, for example, bark can mean the outside layer of a tree or the sound a dog makes. It could also mean somebody shouting something out in an angry way, kind of like the way a dog barks. And the only way to tell is from the context of the sentence. So if I say he heard a bark outside, it's not telling me which kind, but I mean, I know I can't hear an outside layer on a tree. So obviously it's probably an animal sound. Um, Jam could be a sweet paste made of fruit, might be a problem or a difficulty. It might be a machine that's got something stuck in it. I might say I'm eating jam, or we got into a jam about the money we borrowed. How to finish that? How money we borrowed. Or it might be there's a paper jam in the printer, right? If I say a machine is jammed, I immediately know like it's broken is what I kind of mean, right? I don't know if we're gonna do this right now because we're running a little bit. But there, for example, there's a whole lot of meaning of the word hot, right? If you go to this area, um, my gosh, there was an insane number of ways that hot can be interpreted. And so some of those words can be really tricky if you're used to thinking of it in the one way and not thinking about the other way. So, like, for example, um, this one where I'm talking about somebody shouting in an angry way. Um, some people might not have heard that. So if I say the guy barked out an order, they're like, "What are you talking about? Only dogs bark. What do you mean a man barked?" And it sounds weird if they don't know that third way of how it means. So again, if you're reading something and it sounds a little bit odd, that might be one of the reasons why it sounds unusual. It's one of the connotative meanings of the word that you might be unfamiliar with. Which goes to using context clues to understand meaning. We do this so naturally, we don't even notice we're doing it. We do it in conversations, we do it in writing. Um, we're so used to the multiple meanings that we generally choose the correct one right away from the context of the sentence. And the context is those words that are before and after an unusual word, and it's kind of combined with the overall meaning of the sentence. And sometimes we come across a word in a story we don't know, and it's perfectly fine to just use the context of the sentence to make a good guess at what it means. It's also fine to stop and use the dictionary if you want. Both are fine. So if I said he was faced with a conundrum on what to do with the money, spend it on rent or on good clothes for the interview. So conundrum's kind of a funny word. And if I wasn't sure what it meant, I might try and think of what would make sense there. So he seems to be having some sort of choice, right? Because it's listing like this or that. So a choice or a decision. Oops. Oof. There we go. Or maybe it's a problem. Those are all words that might fit there. And if it's really bothering me or if it seems like crucial to the meaning, I would look it up. But if it didn't, if it's like a minor thing and I felt like I understood what was going on regardless, I probably wouldn't look it up in the dictionary. So don't worry about that. Using context clues to understand what a new word means is perfectly acceptable in reading. Everybody does it. All right, so we are on lesson 19. We're almost near the end. Lesson 19 is an anthology of best works. Woohoo! This is your final piece of writing for the course. That's not counting the exam and stuff, but this is assignment 43. It is a series of paragraphs expressing an opinion, and it will be worth 40 marks. So the subject of this series of paragraphs expressing an opinion will be about your development through the course. You're going to go through all the writing and reading assignments we did to choose the most memorable and meaningful parts of your learning process and write an introduction for your portfolio. You are to submit both a rough copy and a final copy for marking. The marks are that the rough copy gets 15 marks and the final copy gets 25. And the series of paragraphs expressing your opinion on your best works will contain an introductory paragraph, a paragraph about your best reading experience, a paragraph about your best writing experience, a paragraph about, a concluding paragraph. You're going to submit your series of paragraphs expressing an opinion to your teacher. I don't find that a great phrase. After it's been marked, you're going to make any needed revisions and then include it in the introduction to your literacy portfolio, regardless of how do you choose to present the portfolio, which we'll talk about, I think, tomorrow or the next day, depending on when we have the time. I think it's our next piece, I think. Okay, so here is the checklist for a series of paragraphs expressing an opinion. Before you start your writing, read through this checklist So you've got an idea what's expected of you. And then read through it again as you're going through the revision part to make sure you've remembered to include everything and check everything. So here is some of what they would like you to check. Read your sources carefully, use appropriate sources effectively, take notes on key points. Now, we're not really using a lot of sources. Your sources are your own work, essentially. Planning. You've determined your opinion on the topic and considered your reasons for thinking this way. Planned your response with rough notes. Writing. You have written a series of paragraphs in complete sentences. You've written an introductory paragraph that clearly presents your opinion. Your opinion is the main idea of the paragraph. Written at least 3 body paragraphs. In this case, I don't think it's 3. I think it's more like 2, to be honest. I think it is 2 paragraphs. Hang on, let me see if I can write that. I don't make the courseware, just so you know. Okay, I'm just teaching what I'm given, but it actually asks for 2 paragraphs plus the intro plus the conclusion. Write a concluding paragraph that demonstrates your opinion. Show an understanding of the concepts, which in this case would be like the literature concepts. Convey an effective tone through word choice and level of language. Use connecting words and linking sentences. Organize your ideas clearly so that a reader can follow and understand your opinion. Revision and editing. You've used the stages of the writing process to revise your work. You've created opinion paragraphs that will appeal to your audience. You've created opinion paragraphs that meet your purpose, which is to convey to me your growth and your development through this course. You've checked your grammar, spelling, and punctuation, and you've had a peer edit your work. I know that some of you are in spots where you might not easily have access to a peer to edit your work. That's fine. Maybe you've got a helper who can do it. Maybe you don't. It's not an end breaker. I do find it really helpful to have somebody read your work if you can, though. A lot of times I'm a terrible proofreader. I find people will catch mistakes that I might not have caught if they help me read through. Producing. You've got a neatly or clearly written or typed copy. You've chosen an appropriate title. I don't know if we need a title necessarily, but okay. This is the overall rubric. This is the rubric I will be using to do the marking, okay? So I'm gonna go through it bit by bit so we can talk about it and so you're aware of what I'm looking for, basically. Okay, up top. If you are in this category, 0 to 49%, if everything is in this category, it means you've not passed that particular assignment. This is somewhere between a D and a C. Achieved the required level of literacy. Exceeding, this is a high C to a high B. And this is an A, significantly exceeding the required level of literacy. Okay, so the first category is knowledge or understanding. And I'm looking at the knowledge of form of opinion paragraphs. So in other words, that you understand how to write an opinion paragraph. And then I'm also looking for your understanding of the resource materials, which in this case is your own writing. So that should be fairly easy to do. So if it's failing, it's demonstrating a limited knowledge of opinion format and limited knowledge of the materials. If it's achieving, it is demonstrating an adequate knowledge of opinion paragraphs, an adequate understanding of the material we read, considerable knowledge of opinions and considerable knowledge of what's read is your high C and high B. And then significantly exceeding is thorough knowledge of how to write an opinion paragraph and thorough knowledge of the materials read. Okay. Next category is thinking and inquiry. Here we're looking at critical and creative thinking skills. And those are skills like developing ideas, selecting information, evaluating, organizing your information, explaining things, and forming conclusions. And again, you'll find the same adverbs being used over and over. So here, the work is demonstrating a limited competence. Here, moderate competence. Considerable competence is this level, and a high degree of competence. Keep in mind, as long as you are in these last three, you're fine. You've passed that assignment. Okay. Can't say the whole course, but I can talk about that assignment. Communication of ideas and information, communication for audience and purpose. Does your writing show that you know your audience and your purpose? So, for example, if you're swearing every second word, then you're kind of not thinking the fact that your audience is your teacher, not like your friend, right? And the purpose is to make sure I see your progress and your growth, and also to demonstrate that you see your progress and your growth in literacy skills. And then also communicating that you are understanding and able to use the opinion paragraph to communicate your opinion effectively, which kind of is a little bit of a repeat here. This one is more knowing the format. This one is more your ability to use that format to communicate. Okay, so there's a lot of considerable overlap. You can communicate information ideas with limited clarity, limited understanding of purpose and audience, limited control of the format. Moderate clarity, moderate effective ability to use purpose and audience, moderate control of the format. Considerable clarity, considerable effectiveness writing to your audience and with your purpose, considerable control of the opinion format, high degree of clarity, high degree of effectiveness, extensive control of the opinion paragraph format. And then our last category is application. Application of language conventions, application of reading strategies, application of the writing process, and application of literacy skills. So we're going to be looking for kind of all of those in this series of paragraphs. Another way to say a series of paragraphs would be to say an essay, which is a little bit easier to say, but anyways, it's multiple paragraphs of the same concept. If you're showing limited accuracy, effectiveness, competence, then you're gonna that's an F or a fail for that particular category. Uses it with moderate accuracy and effectiveness or moderate competence. That is in that D to C range. Considerable accuracy and effectiveness, considerable competence. At that point, you're looking at high C to high B range. And then the A level range is you're using your language conventions accurately or effectively all or almost all of the time, uses reading strategies with a high degree of competence, uses the writing process with a high degree of competence, uses literacy skills with a high degree of effectiveness. So just so you know, those are the things I'm going to be looking for. Okay, now this is a recording sheet for the marks. It's not really a rubric. It just doesn't have enough details to be a good rubric. It's really just more where I would write down the marks. To be honest, I don't find this that effective when I'm already sending you those marking sheets that lists your marks on them. But it's there just so you know. Okay, so you've got to write one paragraph on reading. So I wanted to kind of separate because it's a little bit confusing sometimes which assignments are more about reading and which ones are more about writing, because a lot of them have a little tiny bit of both. So these ones are assignments that I consider are mostly about reading and understanding what you read and demonstrating that you understand. So assignment 3, my communication skills. Assignment 4, temperament. Assignment 6, before reading. Assignment 7, during reading. Assignment 8, after reading. Assignment 10, what do people read? Assignment 11, the news report. Assignment 14, sit down and write. Assignment 17, questions and answers. Assignment 20, understanding a textbook. Assignment 21, textbook features. Assignment 22, skimming and scanning for information. Assignment 23, visuals in information text. Assignment 25, making a prediction. Assignment 27, emoticons and symbols. Assignment 28, advertisers and their audiences. Assignment 29, what are they selling? Assignment 30, interpreting visuals. Assignment 33, form, style, and tone. And assignment 40, the characters. Okay, so what are some things that you might notice about your reading assignments? Like, what are you going to talk about in these paragraphs? Well, first of all, what are some reading strategies that you feel like you understood and used well? Or what are some that you feel like you still kind of struggle with? Some of the reading strategies we've used are visualizing, predicting, activating background knowledge or thinking about what you know on a topic, making connections, prioritizing, that's deciding what's important, summarizing, retelling, asking questions before, during, and after a reading, identifying main idea and details, skimming and scanning, and inference, which is reading between the lines. Okay. We've also worked on identifying literary elements. All narratives have similar elements. Being able to identify and understand these elements helps us to understand the story better. Some elements are characters, setting, problem, solution, plot, theme, or message. We dealt with some of these elements as we read the novel Jimmy Comes Home. Is there one or two elements that you felt you understood better as you worked through this novel and the assignments we did? Did you find that one element was the key to comprehending a novel or a short story better? We also worked on identifying nonfiction features. Some common nonfiction features are headings, subheadings, photographs, diagrams, graphs and charts, captions, table of contents, glossary, index, sidebars, headers, footers, chapter titles, bolded or italicized text. Does knowing about the feature of nonfiction text and their purposes make it easier to understand informational text? So a lot of you are taking other courses with us, might be taking things like science or geography or history. Did you find that after you understood these kind of features better, that it made those kind of readings easier to understand? In the readings we did in this course, did you find that certain types of informational reading became easier to do when you understood these features? Understanding different formats. We have read a lot of different types of fiction and nonfiction texts. We have read poetry, song lyrics, novels, news articles, procedural texts, informational text, brochures, letters, resumes, textbooks, advertisements. Do you feel like you have widened the range of formats that you're comfortable with reading and understanding? Do you feel like there's one or more formats that used to be difficult, but that now makes more sense due to the work we've done? Do you understand more about what makes one reading format different from another? We also used reference tools. We reviewed how to use a dictionary to explore different possible meanings. We've looked at how to use a thesaurus to locate different antonyms and synonyms. We've explored how to get different results from a search engine. We've looked at how to decide whether websites were reliable and or useful. Have you become more comfortable and confident using these tools in your reading journey? Some of this could also be discussed in your writing journey as well. Sometimes it can be hard to see your own progress. So some things to think about are, what did you find easy or easiest to do? What seemed hard to understand or harder to do? Which assignment are you most proud of? Why are you pleased with it? You can also think about what you enjoyed the most. Sometimes that's a key that shows that that was easy for you because you enjoyed it. Maybe you loved reading the novel, but you hated reading the news articles. Maybe you enjoyed the news articles, but found the novel overwhelming. Maybe the work with the ads or the symbols was enjoyable to you. With this approach, talk about why you liked it and what you liked about doing the assignments that were related to it. Okay, so this part is talking about writing assignments, okay? These are assignments that mostly used writing skills. You can use this list to help you write a paragraph on your best writing experience and to discuss your development in writing skills. I have also included research projects here because there were a few things that combined reading and writing that it was kind of hard to split them, and writing was often a significant part of those marks. So I've got this split into 3 categories: the writing assignments, the journals, and the research and writing projects. Okay, so take a look at it there for a second. Okay, writing assignments. Number 1, 7 grandfather teachings. Number 2, growing up in my community. Number 12, writing a rough draft. Number 13, writing a final copy. Number 15, editing a paragraph. Number 24, the information paragraph. Number 26, series of paragraphs expressing an opinion. Number 32, subject, audience, and purpose. Number 35, fiction versus nonfiction. Number 36, writing a cover letter. Number 37, creating a resume. Number 38, using an organizer for an information paragraph. Number 41, the summary. Number 43, a series of paragraphs expressing an opinion. Now, we had a bunch of different journals. That's part of the course outline that the government says has to be included. So we had number 5, about me. Number 9, about learning. Number 16, the writing process. Number 18, progress. Number 31, visuals. Journal entry, importance of reflection. I'm not sure what that one is going to be. I apologize. You'll have to check. Obviously, after 31, 39, success in the workplace. So sorry that I don't know what that one is. And then the research and writing projects, number 19 was creating a brochure, and number 42, demonstrating understanding and identifying resources. So you're able to write anything on those for your writing paragraph, okay? Okay, so some of our writing was in the style of personal narrative. The assignments on the grandfather teachings, growing up in my community, and a lot of the journal projects were in this format. In this format, you're basically just retelling incidents from your life or kind of exploring your thought process. Some people find this easy and enjoyable because it's about a familiar topic themselves, and others hate it because they don't like writing about themselves and sharing it with other people. So if you found you hate this and it was your least favorite assignments, it's okay to not write about that part, right? You can choose from other parts. Okay, other writing formats. Some of our work was on writing our opinion about a topic. We also wrote newspaper articles. We created business documents like a cover letter or a resume. We designed and wrote a brochure on a topic of our choice from the novel. We wrote summaries and informational paragraphs. We did research and summarized the research. Was there a particular format that you really enjoyed or found easy? Was there any change as you continued the course? Did some types of assignments start to get easier with practice? Was there any piece of writing that you're really proud of? One that shows off your writing skills in a really strong way? The writing process. We also did a lot of work with the different steps of the writing process. What did you think about that process? Did you find you made it easier to brainstorm your ideas first? Did you find the revision steps that we practiced made it easier to know how to make your writing stronger? Or maybe you were already familiar with the writing process and were already following these steps on your own. Sentence level. We did a lot of work at the sentence level of writing because these are the essential vehicles for getting across our ideas. We worked on understanding the parts of a sentence and the parts of speech. We worked with different types of punctuation, including quotation marks, colons, and semicolons. We looked at different types of sentences, such as questions, commands, and statements, and how they are formatted differently from each other. We also looked at how to create a compound and how to create a complex sentence. Did you feel like this work helped? Did you begin to feel more confident about how to write a strong sentence? What did you think about this part of the writing process? Paragraphs on best writing and best reading. Okay. So for both of these paragraphs, you're going to follow the same process more or less. Step one, look over your work. What did you notice about it? Were certain formats easier or harder? What improved? Of the new skills that we worked on, what came easiest or shows the most progress? Write down some jot notes of what we see. Step two, organize your notes, put them in order. What should come first? What comes next? Step three, how can you put your thoughts into a topic, sentence, or paragraph? Is there a way to step back and describe the types of changes you see? Step four, write the rough draft of the paragraph. Step five, do the same process for the other paragraph before you go on to the good copy. You may find as you're doing that, you notice a pattern between the two paragraphs that you want to comment on before you do any more work. Like, for example, maybe you noticed you found it really hard to read news articles and you found it really hard to write news articles, or you found it really hard to express your thoughts in the reading assignments, and you also found it hard to express your thoughts in the journal assignments. So you may want to comment on the similarity there or the difference. Work on your closing paragraph, making sure you're following the writing process. Work on your opening paragraph. As mentioned before, I prefer to write this last, but you can do it in whatever format works best for you. Number 8, follow all the revision steps to make your writing the best it can be. And then step 9, edit for punctuation, capitalization, and spelling. And again, make sure to send me both your rough copy and your good copy. I have to have both. It significantly affects your marks if you don't send me in the rough copy. Okay, I am going to talk about the writing opening paragraph first, just kind of chronologically. It makes sense, even if it's not how I would do it. Remember that the overall purpose of this writing is to serve as an introduction to your literacy portfolio. You're going to go back over your work to reflect on the progress you've made in this course. So, for example, you set some literacy goals back at the beginning of the course. Did you meet these goals? Were they reasonable or unreasonable goals? So one example of an unreasonable goal might be that every paper you write be perfectly written from now on. That would be impossible for anyone, right? We wrote the main paragraphs first because I personally find that easier as it gives me some information to work with. What did you notice about your reading work? What did you notice about your writing work? How did your writing or your understanding of what you read change over the course and what we've learned? An opening paragraph often tells the reader the big ideas that you plan to expand on in the main body paragraphs. Here's an example paragraph. I did this on my teaching progress just so I'm not kind of replicating things here. I have seen lots of my own progress over the teaching of this course. I have noticed that I do a better job of explaining the steps needed to complete an assignment. I developed a better sense of the amount of material needed to fill an hour of class. I increased my own understanding of grammar through the process of teaching it. I developed a better sense of what the important aspects of a writing assignment were and how to emphasize them. And while I still have a long way to go, I am pleased by my growth over the teaching of this course. And then in my body paragraph, I would expand on the points I made, right? You would obviously have different points. This is just to give you an example of how it might sound, okay? Oh, we're getting near the end here. Okay, a closing paragraph does not have to be very long. It is essentially restating what the essay was about and what it told the reader. It may come to an overall conclusion of the topic. It might set a new goal going forward. Make sure it points my attention to what you really want me to see in your portfolio as I look it over. Remember, this is what I'm going to read before I look at your portfolio and get a sense of your work overall. So if there is stuff that you've noticed, gosh, make sure you tell me because I'm going to be reading a lot of people's portfolios. You are going to be my helpers in this. You're kind of pointing the way and showing me what to notice, okay? So do you want me to notice how your writing length has increased? Or maybe you've begun to do more work with compound and complex sentences. Maybe you've really worked to shorten your run-on sentences. Possibly you tried to work with transition words more. Maybe you began to use certain reading strategies more as you went through the novel. Maybe there's a reading assignment that you feel really shows some important progress that you've made. In a way, this is your chance to kind of sell your work a little bit and make sure that I see your work through your eyes and see all the parts you worked on so hard, right? Nobody sees the work the way you did. You're the one that knows, that you spent an hour revising that paragraph. I don't necessarily know that. Or that you spent an hour making your rough notes into a rough draft. So it's totally okay to kind of talk about the effort behind the product, right? It's acceptable to tell me, I really spent a lot of time working on this concept or understanding this format or doing this kind of writing technique. I wasn't there. I won't know if you don't tell me. So that's a really important part to look at. All right. One more thing. A lot of times people kind of want to finish a paragraph and say, in conclusion. So I grabbed this little article on different ways to say in conclusion. So here's one example. As has been demonstrated, my client couldn't possibly be guilty. So this is kind of a cute little thing. Another word, looking for another word for in conclusion. Okay. It's not wrong to use it. It can sometimes come across as a bit obvious, but it's totally fine to use it. It's just there's lots of other ways to say the same kind of thing. So, for example, as has been demonstrated, as all the above points have demonstrated, as has researchers demonstrated, that's one way. That way I wouldn't necessarily choose for this particular assignment. As has been shown would work. In the final analysis, let's review. In closing, to summarize, overall, it may be said, taking everything into account, on the whole, in general, it can be said that, with this in mind, in the end, in closing, in summary, that works. These are very similar to what we've done already. As a final observation, considering all the facts, for the most part, informally, you could say things like in a nutshell, but I wouldn't necessarily use that for this particular assignment. I don't like at the end of the day for this. I think it's nice for different kinds of things, but I don't think it really works for our conclusions. Also, I don't like long story short in this sense. All in all, by and large, the bottom line is to wrap things up. Lastly, finally, ultimately, overall, those are good. Therefore, all together, okay? Those are all different ways to summarize or start a concluding paragraph. All right. And then, so it's Halloween time, and here's a little writing meme to brighten our day. When you're at the last sentence of the paragraph, done. We are almost done the course. Just hang on for a little bit longer. And for bonus points, do you see the mistake in that writing? What should it say instead? They messed up their own meme. So funny. I did not make this meme, by the way. When you're not you are, right? When you're at the last sentence of a paragraph, right? Because this kind of your is possessive, right? But you know that now because you've gone through this course. All right, guys, I am really, really pleased that we've gotten this far. Tomorrow, I think we're taking a look at the portfolio tomorrow, I believe. If there's anything you have not finished writing, you can't really do this assignment or the portfolio assignment without finishing the writing first. So if that is the case, take your time, stop, go back, finish those assignments. It's not too easy to do these assignments without all the other work finished, okay? We will meet up again tomorrow and talk about our work.